If daycare sends you a nap report that says great nap today, and you're like, cool, so I'm getting punished at 2 in the morning, you're not dramatic, you're accurate. Because daycare sleep can absolutely mess with nights. But it's not because your baby is a bad sleeper, and it's not because you ruined everything. Hi, I'm Treasure, and I help exhausted working parents make baby sleep make sense again with a calm plan that fits real life, not fantasy schedules. Let's start with the biggest truth that instantly lowers your stress. Daycare doesn't break sleep. Daycare exposes weak links in the sleep math. And the reason it feels personal is because you're the one up at night doing algebra with a toddler and a pacifier. Totally unfair, by the way. Here's the relief. Most daycare night chaos comes from a few repeat patterns, and once you can name the pattern, you can stabilize it without fighting the entire daycare schedule. By the way, if you want this mapped out in a way you can actually follow when you're tired, download my free guide, The Modern Parent Sleep Roadmap. The link is in the video description and on the screen. Okay, here's what's actually going on under the surface. Daycare sleep is different sleep. Not because your daycare teachers are doing it wrong. It's because group care is a totally different environment with totally different timing. Sometimes babies nap later at daycare. Sometimes they nap shorter, sometimes they nap longer, sometimes they nap like tiny angels there and act like they've never heard of sleep at home. And all of that affects night sleep pressure, bedtime timing, and early morning wakes. So if you've been blaming yourself, I want you to release that right now. There are a few common patterns that create this exact problem. The first is the late last nap trap. If that last nap ends too close to bedtime, your baby simply does not have enough sleep pressure built up to stay asleep. So you get bedtime battles, false starts, or that wide awake party at night. But here's a twist that confuses parents. A late nap can also still create an overtired baby if the earlier naps were rough and then nights are a mess for the opposite reason. That's why random bedtime tweaks feel like gambling. You're trying to solve two different problems with one lever. Another pattern is the daycare sleep deficit. This is the baby who undersleeps at daycare, holds it together all day, and then melts down at night. You see it as cranky evenings, more wake-ups, and early morning starts. Because their nervous system is tired and their body is trying to recover sleep any way it can. And yes, this one often hits sensory sensitive babies harder. Not because anything is wrong, but because daycare can be a lot. Noise, light, transitions, and constant stimulation. Another big pattern is what I call weekend whiplash. Weekdays have one rhythm, weekends have another, and your baby's internal clock is like, I would like to file a complaint. The Monday night feels brutal, Wednesday night feels slightly better, and then the weekend resets everything again. You're not imagining that cycle. It's real. Now let's talk about what helps, starting tonight. And I'm going to keep this simple because you're busy and you have a job and a life and maybe another child yelling snack at you. The goal is not perfect sleep. The goal is stability. And stability comes from protecting one anchor. Bedtime needs to be the most protected part of the day. Not the most complicated, just the most consistent. Here's what that means in real life. On daycare days, bedtime often needs to be earlier than you think, not later. I know that can hit you right in the working parent guilt. You finally get home, you want that time, and then sleep is like, actually, we're doing bath at lightning speed. But later bedtime usually backfires when a baby is running on a daycare sleep deficit. Keeping them up to wear them out sounds logical, and it almost always creates more night waking. So if daycare naps were short, bedtime gets pulled earlier to prevent the overtired spiral. Think of it as paying back sleep before the debt gets interest. Now, what if daycare naps were late and your baby is not tired at bedtime? This is where you stop guessing and use a bridge. A bridge is a tiny reset that helps you get to bedtime without chaos. For some babies, that looks like a short cat nap on the way home, early enough that it does not steal from bedtime. For other babies, especially the ones who get wired, it looks like calming the evening way down. Dim lights, quiet play, simple routine, and no bonus stimulation that turns bedtime into a second wind. And if your baby is the kind who cannot handle that bridge nap without bedtime falling apart, that is not a failure. That's just your baby's wiring, and we work with it. Let me give you one of the most helpful mind shifts for daycare families. Stop aiming for a perfect bedtime clock time. Aim for a consistent bedtime range that flexes based on the last nap and the mood of your baby. You're not being inconsistent, you're being responsive. And that responsiveness is what keeps nights from collapsing. Now let's talk about the part nobody tells you. The way you handle the hour after daycare matters more than you think. That post-daycare window is not the time for a productivity sprint. It's the time to help your baby downshift. Snack, connection, and a quick decompression ritual can change your entire night. Because a baby who has been holding it together all day often needs a nervous system exhale before sleep will hold. And if you're doing this solo, I want to say this clearly. You don't need a perfect evening routine to get results. You need a repeatable one. Tiny, consistent, and realistic. Here's another pattern that helps so many families. Pick a stable morning start time and protect it most days, even on weekends. Not because you want to torture yourself, but because sleeping in too late can make bedtime harder and create early morning wakes later. You can absolutely give yourself a little grace on weekends. Just don't swing the schedule so far that Monday feels like jet lag. Now, I want to address daycare directly because this is where parents get stuck. You can't control daycare, but you can collaborate. A simple, respectful request can help more than you think. Things like asking about the timing of the last nap, whether they can offer it earlier when possible, or whether they can gently wake your child if a very late nap is running long. Not every daycare can accommodate every request, but even small shifts can protect bedtime. And if your daycare is locked into one schedule, that's okay. That just means you stabilize the pieces you can control at home. Now, I'm going to say something that might feel like a relief and an annoyance at the same time. Sometimes the issue is not daycare at all, it's the sleep skills at bedtime. If your baby needs a very specific thing to fall asleep at night, they may also need it again at every normal wake up between sleep cycles. So daycare changes the timing, and then those wake ups get louder and longer. That doesn't mean you have to do anything harsh. It just means you want a bedtime approach that supports your baby learning to settle in a way that can be repeated overnight. And if you've been trying random methods and nothing sticks, that's usually the sign you need a plan that matches your baby's temperament and your actual schedule. Not another internet opinion. Here's the part I promise that makes the biggest difference when daycare and nights are both falling apart. You can stabilize nights faster when you stop changing 5 things at once. Protect bedtime. Support decompression after daycare. Keep mornings steady most days. That combination alone often reduces night waking within a week or two, even when daycare naps are imperfect. Not because it's magic, but because it creates predictability for your baby's body. If you want me to personalize this to your baby and your daycare reality, this is exactly what I do in consultations. I have a master's in social work, I'm a certified pediatric sleep consultant, and I'm the CEO of Rested and Renewed Pediatric Sleep Consulting. And yes, I'm also a toddler mom, so I understand that I miss them after work feeling in my bones. If you're ready for a plan that fits your household, you can book a consult through Rested and Renewed. And if you're not ready to book yet, start with my free Modern Parent Sleep Roadmap. Now, let me give you the red flags because I never want you stuck wondering if this is just daycare. If your baby is regularly struggling to breathe, snoring heavily, having frequent coughing at night, vomiting a lot, showing poor weight gain, or seems truly unwell, That's a pediatrician conversation. Also, if sleep suddenly falls apart with fever, significant pain, or you're seeing signs of illness that worry you, that's not a schedule problem. Trust your gut and get medical support. And if the red flag is you, I want you to hear me. If you're so sleep deprived that you feel unsafe driving, your mood is crashing, you're dreading nighttime, or you're barely functioning at work, you don't need more willpower. You need support and a plan. You're not failing. You're carrying too much on too little sleep. If this already made daycare nights feel less hopeless, the next video is where everything starts to click and you stop second guessing every wake up. Tap the screen to watch my next video.
Before you go, download Treasure's free guide, hit subscribe, and watch the next one. You'll be so glad you did.